What's up, metal and heavy music fans? Today we have a review for Bullet For My Valentine and their new album, Bullet For My Valentine, via Spine Farm Records. Watch me shatter! I'm always skeptical when bands drop a self-titled album later in their career. For every Metallica breaking new ground, there's thousands of Suicide Silences out there that most people would rather forget. But as far as this classic Welsh metalcore band is concerned, this is the beginning of what they call Bullet 2.0, and promise that this new album should delight fans both old and new, which is a pretty big statement considering that they've been around since 1998. So my question going into Bullet For My Valentine was, will this be the beginning of a new renaissance or just another overpromise? You make me sick, like a virus, a fucking parasite! Going along with the theme of new beginnings, the band even goes so far as to open Parasite with what sounds like a staticky radio cycling through stations playing some of their old classics. As if to say, we're so confident in this new material, we think it can literally stand side by side with all of your old favorites. Admittedly, this track is way heavier than I expected, with riffs that call back to the glory days of the metalcore genre when bands like As I Lay Dying and Killswitch Engage reigned supreme. And while I still don't really enjoy Bullet For My Valentine's extra nasally approach to vocals or the cliche lyrics, I respect that the chorus maintains that same vibe and avoids going the more butt rock direction that so many of their peers have over the last decade. Knives keeps this intensity going with a pretty infectious groovy hook and pounding cascades of toms that make the track sound huge. It's like an oncoming storm and an earthquake hitting at the same time, and with fewer of those nasally vocals that tend to turn me away. There's nothing original about it in the least, but again, it's admirable to hear songs in the era of djent that so thoroughly capture the same energy as the albums I listened to in high school. Likewise, but from a different approach, my Reverie feels like a song I would have heard on the radio back then alongside the likes of Linkin Park and Papa Roach. It's not what I would call high art, but damned if it isn't catchy. That chorus is gonna be stuck in my head for weeks, like it or not. But unfortunately, things start to go off the rails for me after these first three tracks. Amidst others that just had me checking out in general, we do unfortunately get some butt rock on Bastards. The bouncy rhythms and corny vocals on this one sound like if modern Fall Out Boy decided to go metal. And I shit you not, when the oh part kicked in, my entire face did one of these. And as if that wasn't enough, we get it again right in the next track with the equally eye-roll inducing Rainbow Veins. At this point, the first three tracks almost feel like clickbait. Like I've been tricked into thinking that the whole album would maintain that same harsh energy. And while some like Can't Escape the Waves have elements I enjoyed, like the driving earworm bass line and fast chugging guitars on the verses, it doesn't end up being enough to save it from an overall sense of mediocrity. Bullet do end up rallying a bit at the end with the 1-2 punch of Paralyzed and Death by a Thousand Cuts. But even the best hooks here are so derivative of better As I Lay Dying songs, and by then it's just too little too late. Ultimately, I could see how someone relatively new to metalcore could find this all enjoyable, great even. But as someone who has been listening since the early 2000s and also loves the formative albums of the 90s, there's just nothing here for me to really sink my teeth into. Some people ask me at this point, well then who would you recommend over this? And once more I turn you both to some of my classics lists, as well as new albums from the likes of Make Them Suffer and Polaris. Turning to my scales for this release though, I give Bullet For My Valentine a 7 for enjoyability. Definitely not terrible, and even at times kind of fun, but not enough for me to want to keep listening over and over again. If anything, it just reminds me of other albums I'd rather be listening to than this one. I give it an 8 for musicianship. No shade here, as Bullet For My Valentine are clearly adept musicians and songwriters, and the performances here are strong, even throwing in some pretty stellar solos along the way. And I give it a 7 for innovation. Same old sound, and that could be fine, except it just doesn't even do the blueprint well enough to rise above the pack. So a 7.3 and a C for Bullet For My Valentine and their new self-titled record. Y'all let me know down in the comments what you thought of this album, and as always, if you loved it, I'm happy for you. Also check out my videos for my top metalcore albums of 2021 so far, and favorite classics of the 2000s, but that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.